You're most welcome in this particular museum. There's no admission, no requirement of membership, only a strong and abiding belief in the dark at the top of the stairs, or things that go bump in the night. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Night Gallery.
True, but welcome, art aficionada, to Midnight Viewing, where we're going to be discussing the spiritual sequel to Rod Serling's Twilight Zone, Night Gallery, which ran from 1969 to 1973. Guys, any idea how long the Twilight Zone ran?
Oh, was it 4 years? Was it 61 to 65?
It was 59 to 64, actually.
Oh, okay.
So This is basically the same amount of time between these two series, of course, except Twilight Zone pumped out 700,000 episodes. I am Father Malone, and joining me here in the gallery, as always, are the life and times of Captain Barney Miller's Mike White.
Hello.
And the shabby detective's own Chris Stashew.
Hey, howdy, hey.
Okay. And we're talking about season 1, episode 6, the final episode of season 1. Thank Christ. July 20th, 1971 is when it first aired, and it was broken into 2 segments. They're tearing down Tim Reilly's bar and the Last Laurel.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an exhibit of the eerie and the oddball. Our first offering this evening, faces. Paint, pigment, and desperation. The quiet desperation of men over 40 who keep hearing footsteps behind them and are torn between a fear and a compulsion to look over their shoulders. The painting is called They're Tearing Down Tim Reilly's Bar.
Can't tear that bar down fast enough, Father Malone.
Oh, get rid of that bar.
Fuck off with your bar, you wistful old bastard.
They're Tearing Down Tim Reilly's Bar was written by Rod Serling, no doubt. It was also directed by Don Taylor, who the same year directed Escape from the Planet of the Apes.
Very nice.
There's a weird connection because Serling wrote that. Anyway, this one stars William Wyndham, or as I like to refer to him, Commodore Matt Becker from Star Trek, always the Doomsday Machine.
Oh, yeah.
It also stars Diane Baker, Bert Convy.
Diane Baker, baby. Silence of the Lambs, baby.
Bert Convy is about to jump out of an airplane on a motorbike.
On a motorbike, but he'll have the permanent, which he doesn't have here. He's got kind of wavy hair. But later this year, he stars in an episode of Banachek, and he's got the full perm. So
this is proto Bert Convy.
It's like a chrysalis of Bert.
I'm more of a fan of Diane Baker, who I kept looking at and being like, what do I know her from? What do I know her from?
Love her suit.
And you're like, last salute to the Commodore. Oh, wait, no. I haven't watched that yet.
Columbo, right? She was on an episode of Columbo.
Yes.
This episode is just absolutely staggeringly peopled with Wheel members. Like, everyone has appeared on all the other shows. It's kind of crazy. You know, William Wyndham was on Columbo and Banachek. He shows up in the season 2 of this show. He was in one of my favorite episodes of The Twilight Zone, which was 5 characters in search of an exit. And he was great in that. Anyway, this episode was nominated for an Emmy for Best Dramatic Single Episode. Only two Emmys that the show was nominated for. It lost to the Andersonville trial. And this episode concerns an over-the-hill executive whose present is far less appealing than his past. A past embodied by a former watering hole that is currently being raised in the name of progress. How's that for some fucking symbolism? Like, what'd you think of this one?
Oh, boy, oh, boy. This went on for a long time. How long was this episode?
35 minutes.
Wow.
Holy shit.
I felt every minute because we just kept doing the same thing over and over and over again. And then we get to the end, and I'm not sure if I actually know how this thing ended. I'm not sure if that was a dream or if that was a reality, because by this time, I didn't give a shit.
And that's the true test of any episode, is whether or not by the end of it you care. So, you know.
Yeah, we'll all go to a great length to fill in the blanks for an episode that pleased us, right? But if nothing makes sense and we don't care, then we really don't want to know.
Yeah, and this is one of those. I mean, I really want, you said the cast is amazing. I love seeing John Randolph in here at his crotchety best, always so great. And yeah, I'm just like enjoying this cast and like, okay, this is great. Bert Convy's this, younger exec who wants to eat William Wyndham's lunch, and it just, all this stuff keeps happening. And yeah, he keeps having these delusions that he's back in Reilly's bar and there's all these things going on. And I guess time is passing inside of Reilly's bar. Is that right? Like kind of starting at the beginning of
Seems to be
when they open and then move on through the timeline. Okay, sure, that works, I guess. But yeah, like I said, it just kind of wears out its welcome. Had it been even, I don't know, 5 minutes to start, but I would say like take this thing down 15 minutes, give it 20 minutes tops.
Chris, what'd you think?
I've been trying to figure out how J. Michael Straczynski traveled back in time and wrote this episode. Bing, bang, pow.
That's a fucking burn.
That is a burn. And this is a really bad episode. Like, what is episode segment? Let's not give it away or anything. But this segment is like wistful in a way that is so disgusting and maudlin and saccharine that I just wanted it to be over. This reminded me tonally of that episode segment from Twilight Zone 85 where it's the guy who runs into his former self and his former and the what
Peter Riegert, right?
Was Peter Riegert? Who the what? Was it Peter Riegert?
See, there were a bunch. The Peter Riegert one was the Harlan Ellison wistful one, and then there was a whole other wistful one because it was not by that last season. It was nothing but wistfulness.
Yeah, this is the one. The one I'm thinking of is the one where it's like the couple meets their like past selves.
Oh, okay. I was thinking One Life Furnished in Early Puberty.
Yes, but again, I would contend that any of those wistful bullshit episodes from 1985 are exactly what this episode is attempting to do.
Oh, yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways, it is immensely successful at doing that. I just have no interest. That's the problem. It's not successful. I would contend, I think we would all agree, it's successful at doing what it's trying to do. Too bad that that's not interesting or entertaining or anything, frankly. Like, it's a deeply personal story, clearly, for Rod Serling to be writing, but it's not unique. It's not interesting. He's not saying anything that someone else hasn't said better either. So there's also that.
Including him.
Right, exactly. It shows the weakness of Rod Serling's writing, even up against his own writing from 10 years earlier.
I went into a deep Rod Serling dive this weekend, just trying to make amends in some way because I've been kicking him pretty hard all season long, and I'm feeling bad about it because I love that man and I love the original Twilight Zone. So I went back and I actually started watching a lot of his early stuff. I started watching a bunch of the Craft Theater and Playhouse 90 stuff that he was doing, which is sparkling. It's really, really good. I mean, it is, but it is very stage bound and it is all very thematic. And that theme is young versus old, or old man who no longer can come up, up against society. His most famous thing in 1955 was a thing called Patterns. Patterns is a story about a younger executive who comes to a new company or a well-established company, and there's an older vice president who the president is trying to force out to let this new young buck who's going to revitalize. It's exactly the same, except it's nuanced and thoughtful. It's an hour and a half, and it has challenging conclusions to it. It's really, really good. This is the palest imitation of it I've ever seen. But not just that, because there was Trouble with Templeton, Stop in Willoughby, Walking Distance, of late, I think, of Cliffordville. Like, he wrote this story over and over and over again, which is fine because the Ramones wrote the same song over and over and over again.
That's my point. Like, it's okay. Like, it's just
Jim Thompson wrote the same novel 6 times in a row, and but it's all of the variations are interesting, and all of them have something to say. Rod didn't really have much to say beyond, this is the way of the world and we have to deal with it. And, good should be rewarded, but it's never. And it's a bleak episode. I want to point out some things that I did like about it. Benny Carter's music is really, really good. It's propulsive and weird and like not anything we've heard before. It sounded modern, which is a fucking change for the show. I mentioned this in the last episode. When Serling's characters are angry, that dialogue, no matter the actor, is really, really good. It comes alive. And that happened when Bert Convy and William Wyndham went at it sort of at the beginning. I thought, Jesus Christ. And William Wyndham's performance is so good. I mean, the episode is worthless, but he's so good. There's a moment in this, one of the many moments of him breaking down and realizing how futile life is, where he's talking to the cop, where he's broken into into Tim Riley's bar.
I shouldn't be hustled to death in the daytime and then die of loneliness every night. That's not the dream. That's not what it's about.
I cried my fucking eyes out during that scene. Like, William Wyndham sold it so hard. I love that. But the rest of the episode is a major problem, including the ending. Mike, what you said at the beginning, like what actually happens at the end? He is fired. He goes down to Tim Reilly's bar. This is what happens in the episode we saw. He goes into Tim Reilly's bar. All the ghosts are slowly fading, including that of his wife, meaning he can't stay there with them. Meanwhile, his secretary has talked the boss into...
Jose, are you asking us or saying?
No, I'm asking.
I don't have an answer for you.
The secretary talks the boss into rehiring him and then throwing him a party. It's the weirdest. It's like it's like the end of Taxi Driver, where everything is like good now because he did this horrible thing. Like what?
And all of it takes place off screen too. You see her walk into the office of John Randolph and start like going on this diatribe about you didn't give him anything, blah blah. And then the next thing we see is he wanders into a bar across the street from Tim Reilly's.
Right.
Yeah, just happens to hear them singing for He's a Jolly Good Fellow, which has been throughout this entire episode.
Which I never want to hear that song again.
Yeah, I know, right?
I will, you know what? They mentioned, okay, William Wyndham's character mentions Tim Reilly's bar a bunch of times. So I could actually get behind maybe they're like, oh, this bar is across the street from Tim Reilly's bar. And like, maybe I can give it that. But that doesn't explain, is he dead? Like, did he kill himself? Like,
it's a fantasy ending. It
right.
Makes no sense at all. Now, the rumor is the original ending was we don't stay with the secretary. He gets fired. He goes down. He's going to escape into Tim Reilly's bar and disappear into the past. And when he gets there, it's a vacant lot. That's the rumor I read. But I happen to have this, which is Rod Serling's adaptation of his own screenplay. And it's the exact same thing as the story and the thing. And I know he would have gone with his original here.
Right. He wouldn't have gone with what was changed.
Right. He would have said, like, because there's the profanity in the novelization. There's lots of stuff that he could never have gotten away with in television. And why wouldn't he just publish the actual ending? Because it's a better ending. It really is. This guy thinks he can at least escape and then it's no longer available to him. That would have been something.
Well, here's the thing. Wouldn't the better ending have been he goes into the building and then the building is torn down and he disappears?
Something. That's another something.
Yeah.
Like that's what I was expecting. What I was anticipating the way it ended was the way weird reference, Memoirs of an Invisible Man is, where it's like he goes into the building and the building gets demolished with him in it. Like in that movie, he goes into the building and it gets invisibled with Chevy Chase in it. Spoilers for that movie.
Oh my God.
Come on.
Sam Neill's finest performance.
I've never seen it. No, that's not true. That's not true.
I was like, there's no fucking way you haven't seen it.
No, I've seen it. John Carpenter. I'm not going to not see.
It should have been that, because then like he gets what he wants, but he has to sacrifice everything for it, which is a ending that makes kind of sense thematically with the message. But again, what's weird to me is, you know, this episode would have been right. I mean, the J. Michael Straczynski dig aside, this episode would have been at home in 1985.
This episode was at home in 1985. We keep mentioning the Straczynski wistful sort of saccharine sappy episodes, but the themes of this episode that Serling obviously worked over and over and over again in his fiction was absolutely perfected by Rockne O'Bannon in wordplay, right? Yeah, I mean, it ended up on the Twilight Zone. And it's short. It's like 22 minutes. And it's so brief and beautiful. Yeah, that's what I kept thinking of while I'm watching the endless episode that we were given here by Serling. This is sort of elegiac because really he loses control of the series here. I mean, it is almost autobiographical in a way. I don't know if he knew it was coming, but beyond this season, he is no longer in control of the series, which is for good or ill. So it's kind of appropriate that this is the big one that he goes out on, and it got nominated for an Emmy, which, by the way, was I told you they lost to the Anderson trial. In our next segment, one of the actors was in that show. That must have been weird.
You know what? 1971 was a different time, because I would not have nominated this for anything. Maybe nominated this for it needs to be picked up by the dog catcher and thrown out to the pound because it's a dog. Like it's so not anything. And if it were 10 minutes, it might have been okay. But like you said, Mike, 34 minutes. Yeah. Fuck, like, good God. You could do so much more with that time. Anything. I would rather rewatch that episode segment with Godfrey Cambridge
Oh wow, that's I don't know. If
I'm
that's
saying
far.
something
I don't
here.
know. That
At least it was like
That's
bad.
a hot take.
At least it's bad in an entertaining way. This is just bad in like a get off the screen as fast as possible way, please.
I suppose there's something to be mined from the total idiocy of the make me laugh.
I mean, that's my point. Like, you know, I've been reading Forrest Gump, the book by Winston Groom, which is just like this. It's this like wistful bullshit of like a time past. But at the same time, it's not, because it's like poking fun at that constantly and making fun of the people who got wrapped up in it. Because again, the movie Forrest Gump and the book are vastly different. He goes to space in the book with a monkey.
Of course. Ham. Was it
Why
Ham?
wouldn't you?
Sue the monkey. But Sue is a male monkey on top of everything. And then he lands on a cannibal island in Papua New Guinea. Like I said, where was this in the... Yeah, Mike White.
I want to see that, man.
Where was that?
Man.
Tom Hanks and Pygmy Cannibals.
Can we do a sequel, like a parallel thing?
There was a sequel. There was a sequel book called Gump and Co. Because of course there was. But this is that same kind of just like yearning for a time gone past. And it's just so... I'm not interested in these kinds of stories anymore after having seen them so many times in 1985's third season, because it was almost like most of them were contained there, because similarly with that show to this show, like the people who created the show lost control of it. This show just happens to be Rod Serling, the guy who created the Twilight Zone, losing control, not the dudes rebooting the show. So
right. I watched a bunch of Serling at UCLA taking questions and answers from the students, and I watched.
Was he smoking?
And was he drunk?
It was audio only, but yes, he was definitely smoking because you kept hearing like, you know, and like you'd hear the lighter go. But what's funny is in every talk that he was giving after Night Gallery, at least one student would point out how good this episode is.
Wow.
The Tim Reilly particularly.
Unironically, yeah.
No, unironically, and he totally agrees with them.
I mean, I can't blame him for that.
Of course he would.
He got validated by the Emmys. So as far as Rod Serling is concerned, they gave him validation. Nothing any one of us can say can take that away.
No, and I'm not trying to take anything away from him, honestly. Like I'm not on. I mean, I sort of watched all of these things just because he was a giant, you know, and we're getting him at the tail end, and it's kind of unfair because his sensibilities were no longer the sensibilities of the time. But still, he gave us a couple of corkers this year, so he wasn't without the possibility. It's just that he's not the most fantastic of writers. He's always a more dramatic human interaction writer. So if he doesn't have a basis for it, it just kind of falls apart.
It is unfortunate that it's Rod Serling, the guy who created the original show. We've never watched Rod Serling at his, finest.
Right.
We've only ever talked about it circuitously. So whatever. I mean, hey, it happens. But like, here's the thing. Like, it's not inexcusable because like they're still paying him. So like, I don't know, like what excuse does anyone have? Like,
that's the thing. And he got this was a full season. This is 6 episodes, 6 hours that he got to write anything he wanted and no one could touch it. Really.
Right.
Yeah. Like I get it. I understand why that was the case then. They gave Jordan Peele and Ryan Murphy and all these other creators now the same carte blanche, and we've seen what they've done with it for good and for bad.
And Serling was renowned amongst writers in television for being the guy who always fought for other writers, that every word would be on screen, that they wouldn't change one thing. If there was a camera direction that a writer had written, then that camera direction would make it into the show. So, it was, to him, writing was king, and now here, this is it. Like, he won't get the chance again.
Very much the Dan O'Bannon school of doing things.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But and like I don't know how y'all feel about it, but like I don't prescribe to that, because at some point, like, you have to make amends with yourself and atone for your project not being in your hands anymore. Like, you can bitch and moan, but like, you signed that contract, you cashed that paycheck, you understood the dynamics of the situation, and hopefully you defended your ability to do what you wanted with the project. But you have to do that. So if you don't get that, that's your fault, frankly, like in a lot of ways. Like, it is, but it isn't. But ultimately it is, because if you sign on the dotted line, unless someone's forcing you, like literally forcing you.
He came on board and like I said, he gave us a full season and it didn't work. I mean, it was popular enough. What's funny is, like, he mentioned in one of the interviews I read, like, that this was pulling in 35 million viewers a week during its first and second season, and that was a minor hit on that landscape. And then I just read like House of the Dragons opening did 25 million, and it's a massive monster hit. And I'm
90,
like, right.
It did 99 million.
99. There you go. But still, it's still considered a monster hit, right?
That's
but
the largest premiere of a show ever on HBO.
And Night Gallery is just a minor thing. It's only 35 million Americans tuned in.
That's a ton. Like 35 million people watching anything is nuts to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like that means that someone in your daily life, you could have a conversation with them at the time about Night Gallery. More than likely.
Yes.
Like are there TV shows you can just have a general conversation with people right now? No, there's way too much. Like
there is.
That's all. I mean, that's also the other thing. It's like now in the day of Amazon Studios, Lord of the Rings on Amazon Prime, which is its own streaming service with no ties to anything else, and Hulu and Netflix. It's like I mean, you can't even watch terrestrial TV anymore. It has to be, digital antennas.
Yeah, exactly. I stream everything from broadcast television anyway, like off of a streaming service. I'm not tuning in to ABC or NBC anymore these days.
I just think it's awesome. Like at the time, you could be like, "Oh yeah, did you guys see the episode of Midnight Gallery Midnight Viewing? Did you guys hear about that? If you like, that would be a thing you could commiserate with people about. Like, I don't think that's the case anymore.
Right.
No.
For shits and giggles, I had to look up what the MASH finale was. 105.9 million people.
Holy shit on a stick, man.
I think we could all agree that's way too many.
It peaked at 121.6 million in the final 6 minutes of the show.
Wow. Like everybody tuned in.
God.
Yeah. So is that like everyone? I mean, it seems like
it's not the whole country.
Yeah. How many people lived in the US at this time and parts of Canada?
You guys remember the part at the end of the episode where the guy was eating the onion ring and then it cut to black? That was the best part of that. Best part.
Nobody
it was a
that.
chicken.
That's insane. 35 million was a minor hit.
Yeah.
Good God in heaven.
Anything else to say about our last real tangle with the wistfulness of Mr. Rod Serling? Okay, I'd like to end it on just saying that all nostalgia is gross. Okay, our next story.
Yes,
it is. It's awful.
Yes. We are now inundated with it more so than people were in 1971, and
certainly
that's I think also it. Like if it weren't such a capitalistic, disgusting siphon for so many people of their hard-earned money, I don't think people would get away with it. Like, what were people nostalgic for in 71?
In the same speech, Serling, like, completely devoid of this conversation about Night Gallery, like, just sort of at one point said, the fact of the matter is, I miss Nickelodeons and $5 sodas and short pants. That's where I want to be right now. And it's like, wow.
I miss rationing food and using steel to make bullets and guns and rivets to kill
we
Germans.
all just miss being a kid, like it's so
it doesn't
dumb,
matter
like...
what time and era, it's a missing of the youth, not a time and a fucking place.
And I wish people would stop doing that, telling us like how great the world was then. The world was always fucked. It'll always be fucked. It's just that you didn't have any responsibilities or worries.
Yes.
Yeah, Stephen King. Yeah, J. Michael Straczynski. I mean, again, there's so much of it now, and it's like even the best writers or people that could be considered the best writers aren't immune from just peddling it.
Enough, I say.
Welcome, art lovers. We offer for your approval a painting which has to do with what happens to men who take a walk into nature's marketplace and exchange certain powers for other powers. The blind, we're told, for example, develop an extraordinary sense of touch. In this case, the story of a man who perfects the art of killing. Our painting is called The Last Laurel.
Our next segment is called The Last Laurel. This one was written by Rod Serling, though it was adapted from a short story, The Horsehair Trunk by Davis Grubb. It's the author of Night of the Hunter. And it was directed by Daryl Duke, who I mentioned we got a lot of wheel people on this episode. He directed episode Banachek, Cool Million, and eventually he got to Columbo, but it wasn't until 1990, but I'm still counting it.
So I know him best for The Silent Partner, which is a fantastic movie.
Yes, it is. Like, I love that. It's crazy finding so many of these television directors who were just effortlessly jumping back and forth between theatrical and television. This one stars Jack Cassidy, who was on Columbo 3 times, gentlemen.
Boy, wasn't he on one of the best episodes of Columbo. I think that was those are the consensus we came to, Mike. That was the best episode of the first season. Yeah.
Murder by the book.
Oh,
all
so
the way.
good. And it might be partly because of the direction, but Jack Cassidy plays a big part in why that episode is so good.
So
Cassidy's
smarmy.
great.
Such a slimy shit. Just and just perfect too. Oh, Columbo, you want to read some Miss Marple books? Here, let me lend you some of them so you can be a real detective.
Martine Beeswick is also in the episode, and Martin E. Brooks. It tells the tale of a recently invalided man who suspects his wife is unfaithful and explores a curious method of vengeance. What'd you think, Chris?
Oh, I liked it better when it was John Aston. It has the same vibe of that episode. It's a revenge tale, spousal revenge tale.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's not really. In the John Aston one, it's a spousal revenge tale gone wrong. This is a spousal revenge tale gone wrong, I guess? Question mark? Again, they're tearing down Tim Riley's Bar's ending is kind of fucking weird. The ending of this episode segment is also kind of fucking weird. Like, what happened? I'm not sure. Mike White, step in and tell me what happened.
So what, he's an invalid, but he can astral project. But then when he can astral project, he can make things move, kind of like Vincent Schiavelli in Ghost. But what, he commits murder, but then before he can get back to his body, his skull is crushed by something.
He killed himself.
He thought
He was startled in the hallway by lightning, picked up the thing, and then walked into the wrong room.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's so stupid. It's mind-blowing. He walked into the room with himself in it and clubbed himself over the head without looking.
The room that he's been stuck in because he can't move. So he would be very familiar with that room, I think.
The house in general.
Theoretically, yes, Mike White, yes. Wow. It's mind-boggling. Like I said, I didn't understand what happened because it's just the drizzling shits. Both of these segments have just been like, what, Rod Serling, what are you doing?
Wow.
What's going on here? This is somebody else's story on top of everything else.
Can I say in defense of this episode?
Oh, God.
Hold on.
If you want to.
That sort of traveling matte shot that they're able to pull off, where they're moving the camera independently of Jack Cassidy, who was obviously filmed separately and then matted into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not innovative, but it's pretty ingenious. That the way that Daryl Duke, it was just bad enough just to feel off and not cheap. You know what I mean? Like, at no point was I like, oh, this is just some shitty effect. Like, I thought it was kind of cool. I don't know. That's my big defense in the episode, because the rest of it is pretty terrible. It's not. It's not good.
That was it was technically impressive the way they did everything with Jack Cassidy and astral projection land. Which is essentially the last 3-4 minutes of the segment. It's interesting technically, but like the story it tells is so bizarre because the way the story it's telling as a structure makes sense. Like, you have a guy who's recently crippled by a something that's
car accident.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
sure.
okay.
Car accident. And
I thought it might have been the horse and buggy rode off the road, because this feels very Victorian to me.
From Rod Serling? What?
I know, crazy talk.
What?
I wanted to like this episode because the premise is interesting. Because he's in bed and he can astral project and he knows stuff's going on. And I was expecting he was going to frame her for the murder of the doctor.
That's the plan.
What I thought too.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the point of the twist? The twist is so dumb.
The twist would have been okay if it had made any sense, because as you said, he knows his house. He wouldn't walk in and immediately, and he's going to look at who he's clubbing.
Right.
That's what I don't understand.
He really wants to hurt that human being. So he's going to, instead of just and it's one small tap too. And then when we cut back to him, his skull is caved in. It's like,
yes.
What? Okay.
I did not honestly believe that when he hit whoever he was hitting, that he was killing.
I thought it was going to be the pan back and there was nobody in the bed and he was in the wrong room that way, because the sound of it even was just like a thump, it wasn't somebody dying and screaming or something.
Right. At least it's 10 minutes long. I don't know. Like, at least it's whatever, like 13 minutes is got to be what
I
it is.
guess we can thank Tim Riley's bar for that.
Right. Like, thanks for being overly nostalgic before so that this episode can be out the door faster. But good God in heaven, like what is achieved by the finale of this episode segment?
Yeah.
Oh, Father Malone, what's going on with Rod Serling, man? This season of Deconstructing Serling.
He looked for short stories that were ironic and a bit of a jolt and easily translatable to film. Those were his criteria. So I guess in his mind, this was that, except we already had an invalid killing his wife through a mysterious means earlier this season.
Yeah.
Look, I feel bad that Rod Serling lost the mantle here and that they kept his name, which was his big gripe going forward on this show is that it continues to be called Rod Serling's Night Gallery, which they should not have done. Like, they kind of broke the deal once it was no longer Rod Serling's Night Gallery and should have taken his name off it, because who cares? No one was tuning in because it said Rod Serling's Night Gallery.
I would contend that up until this point, I think I would understand why they took it away from Rod Serling. I'll be that guy and say it. Like, I'm sorry, but up until this point, yeah, I can see why they took it away from Rod Serling, because the better segments, I'm not sure he's the one who wrote them.
There are only a handful of other writers this season, and they're consistently better than Mr.
Right.
Serling.
He wrote all but 3 this season. The Dead Man, The Housekeeper, and Room with a View are somebody else. Everything else is Rod Serling. So
he's got no one to blame but himself.
Yeah.
Correct.
This is how he goes out this is the season ender. A wistful thing that takes way too long, followed by a thing that wouldn't have made muster on the Twilight Zone. Like, he would have discarded that script back then.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. That's the other issue. It's like, why are you lowering yourself to these short stories that are all very like lazy stories? Not everything can be Black Occurrence at Owl Bridge or whatever the hell that one's called. Like, not everything can be good in that way and ironic. Like, these short stories are attempting that in a very ham-fisted and lazy way.
That's the thing, because, Richard Matheson described Serling as a statement writer. That's the thing. He came at it from, I'm going to tell you something or get something off my chest or examine something that's bugging me. It was never about the story. Really. People like Matheson and Beaumont are the reason we remember the Twilight Zone, because those guys were just like, let's tell an interesting tale. Like, it doesn't have to be teaching you anything or commenting on society or politics or anything at all. Serling was all about that. So he got into speculative fiction because he wasn't getting away with what he wanted to say on regular television. They were censoring him and they were changing the script so that, like, he couldn't do a thing about a racist Southern character who hated Black people. The network changed it to Maine, and the guy hated some like Eskimos or something like that. It's like so ridiculous. And he's like, how do I get my stories on the air? Oh, if I make it about aliens, then nobody gives a shit. So, but by now he's completely run out of steam there. Like, he was a Johnny-come-lately sort of aficionado of science fiction and horror.
I agree with you 100%, and it's unfortunate because we all want to remember the things that we love. I mean, it's like when we did Tales from the Crypt. It's no different. You remember these things so fondly, and you think so highly of these writers and people who work on these shows. And then you see what we end up getting, and, again, through no fault of their own or fault of the system or their own fault, it's okay to diminishing returns and stuff like this. This feels like diminishing returns. And somehow this feels like diminishing returns when 1985, in most of its part, didn't. It didn't feel like diminishing returns, but yet this does already in the first season.
Yeah, and this is a series that he'd been kicking around for a while. So that, like, he'd been pitching this in 67 or something like that.
Boy.
Yeah.
It's like that comedian. What was he doing for 16 years, Godfrey Cambridge? Wasn't he writing anything else? Wasn't he coming up with something? Wasn't he trying to tap into maybe what the political or social climate actually is in the world, instead of telling us about moldy old mansions and old money white people? I'm glad the season's over, gentlemen.
I am equally as glad that this season is over, but there have been some bright spots.
Yeah, we wouldn't be talking about the series if it weren't. Like, there had to have been quality to get to season 2, and he did provide that.
Richard Kiley was still painted into that picture hilariously. You can't take that away from us.
Never.
There's nothing you can do to take that away from us. We'll never forget that. That's the best part of this season. That goofy ass Richard Kiley just.
Which is kind of sad because it's the very first episode.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I was like racking my brain just now. Like,
Yeah.
what else was good? Like the pilot.
Yeah, the first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
The pilot was good.
Yeah.
The pilot, it's fucking wild. The pilot was Rod Serling. Then the next 3 are so episode 1 and then the first segment in episode 2 are all someone else, and then the rest is Rod Serling. And like it never gets back to where it was in the pilot. This is like Tales from the Crypt, but amplified by like 10. Because remember, we had this whole thing of what's our favorite episode of the show? The first episode of the entire show.
Yeah. Oh, the pilot.
Yeah,
that's
the
not
pilot.
good.
I mean, yeah, that's not good. Like and we ended up by the end of that show finding other things to like, but like, the best thing we've seen was the pilot.
Yeah.
Like, yikes, not good.
Continues here for now, at least, I think.
I would agree. Yeah. For now, I mean, look, like you said, we're getting into a version of the show that sans Rod Serling in a big way.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we're going to suddenly jump in quality and it's going to be the greatest show of all time, but it is going to be different, and it is the Night Gallery that I remember. So this is.
So you don't remember the first season? You didn't watch it in the first.
No,
season.
The thing is, I had seen it, but look, everyone saw the pilot if you watch Night Gallery because it was available on videotape. Right. Like it was, it was the one thing of Night Gallery that you could always see. And it was constantly playing. The series was a little more happenstance as far as finding, but I know I've seen the entire run of the show. I mean, I saw it as a kid and then again as an adult. So I remember this season, but it always in my mind was like the Twilight Zone Part 2, Season 1. Like it was the tail end of like a season that never got produced on the Twilight Zone or something. And now it's going to become the show that it was kind of meant to be.
I mean, that pilot is pretty Twilight Zone-y. It has a straight up supernatural segment, a pseudo supernatural segment, and then a like science segment. So, or like a be careful what you wish for segment, I guess is probably the eyes segment.
Yeah, the supernatural element is so silly. It's it's an after. It's just another. It's an excuse we can talk about.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but well, on to season 2, right, Father Malone?
Yes, indeed. In fact, on our next episode of Midnight Viewing, we will be uncrating season 2. That first episode is broken into 4 segments. The Boy Who Predicted Earthquakes, Miss Lovecraft Sent Me, The Hand of Borges Weems, and Phantom of What Opera. Until then, where can people find you, Chris Stashu?
cstachu.com. That's my link tree. Go there for all the things that I work on. cstachiw.com. Like you mentioned, you introduced us in such an interesting way. Nobody's ever introduced us as the life and times of Barney Miller's Mike White and the Shabby Detectives, Chris Stashu. Kind of, it's like we're like this is like indie cred. Yeah.
Look, you know what? You guys work hard, and people should hear about it. That's what I figure.
Well, thanks. Thank you.
Ooh, hot take, very spicy. I agree.
I listened to the Rings of Power podcast today. Which I'm plugging right now for everybody. Go listen to that.
It.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we'll take it. Yeah, we're in the process of expanding and creating some new shows and stuff. So that's all over at cstachu.com, and that's where you can find me. What about you, Mike White?
Well, when I'm not talking about Barney Miller or the Shabby Detective or Podcast of Powering or any of those things, I'm talking about movies over at the Projection Booth, which is available at projectionboothpodcast.com. Funny enough.
Funny how?
Like a clown, actually. It's meant to amuse you.
No, you said funny. No, you said I'm funny.
Anthony.
Anyway, for me, if you want to find out anything about check out any of the nonsense that I'm trafficking, and go over to fathermalone.com. You can check out my video podcast, Wolf and Raisin the Banachek podcast over there. Until then, or I don't know, that doesn't make any sense. I'm just going to say goodbye, everybody.
Bye.